Hello and welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish. Today is Tuesday, June 20th. And as always, we're gathered to do this work on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, and we're very lucky to do so. Can I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Greenlaw. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. First order of business is in District of Squamish Annual General Meeting. I will pass it over to staff.
Oh, good to go. Okay. Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Rianne Sousa, and I'm the Director of Financial Operations at the district. To assist with addressing me, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am here today to present the 2022 Statement of Financial Information, also known as the SOFI report. The goal of the presentation today is for Council to approve the 2022 SOFI report. For council and the public's background, to comply with the Financial Administration Act, the district must prepare a consolidated statement of financial information by June 30th, which includes employee remuneration above $75,000 and the total amount of expenses paid to or on behalf of employees, a consolidated total of all remuneration paid to all employees, the total amount paid to each supplier of goods or services above $25,000, and a consolidated total of all other payments made to suppliers of goods and services. The consolidated SOFI includes transactions for the district, library, and Squamish Sustainability Corporation. In addition, Section 168 of the Community Charter requires municipalities to report annually council members' remuneration, benefits, expenses, and any contracts with the municipality. To note, the Financial Administration Act requires that the audited financial statements be included in the SOFI report and therefore are included in the report that's presented to Council. To note, these are the 2022 financial statements that Council reviewed and approved in May 2023. The next steps are following Council and officer approval. The 2022 SOFI will be forwarded to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So in conclusion, the resolution in front of Council is that the District of Squamish approve the 2020 Statement of Financial Information as presented on June 20th, 2023. This concludes the presentation, and I'll now turn it back to the Chair.
Thank you. Council, did any questions for our staff here on this? No? Okay, well, we'd entertain a motion. Moving staff recommendation, Councillor French, and second by Councillor Hamilton. Yep. Great. Any comments? Go ahead.
This is a comprehensive annual document, and while I don't want to call it mandatory resident reading, it certainly is a document that gives some excellent insight into what the district does, how it does it, and the tone at which we do the things that we do. As always, very well put together, and I appreciate the staff time and effort that went into the document. I support this motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, so with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. And did that cover the auditor piece? Were they both together there? Sorry, I missed what was.
I apologize. Would be the next motion.
Okay, so Councillor Stoner is moving that BDO be appointed auditors for the District of Squamish. I'll second that. I don't see anyone jumping to speak about auditors. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And then do we have, I know this is all tied together with the annual report. Linda's going to, great, Miss Glende.
Good morning, Council. My name is Linda Glende. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer here at the district, and my pronouns are she and her, and you can address me accordingly. I'm very pleased to present on behalf of Council and staff to the community the District of Squamish Annual Report for 2022. You'll see some pictures up on the slides, but I'll hold up the hard copy, and it's also available online. This report marks another significant year of progress during the previous council's final year and lays the foundation for the work the district will do during this new council's term. The annual report reflects the strategic work of our organization to meet the needs of Squamish amid ongoing challenges such as housing affordability, climate change mitigation, as well as opportunities through enhanced neighborhood connectivity and economic development. The report provides updates on the four main pillars that were central to the 2018 to 2022 strategic plan. The report then looks forward to the strategic goals we have set for 2023 and 24, which are organized under the four new pillars of the 2023-2026 strategic plan. All of this work is aligned with the Squamish 2040 official community plan. So the next few slides will fall under the four categories of the strategic plan, the first being the planet and the environment. Of a long list of actions, the district took key steps forward in support of the planet and our environment. Work to action the Community Climate Action Plan continues to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions across the community. Work to improve energy efficiency at the Brennan Park Recreation Centre has resulted in the award of $11.7 million in grant funding from the federal government, which will help fund a $16 million project for the Brennan Park Centre energy and accessibility upgrades. Zero waste continues to be a focus with new targets and priorities established and steps towards helping Squamish businesses close the loop on waste through a circular economy roadmap. Improved transit service is ongoing as we work to offer more frequency and reliability to help encourage transit ridership and a shift away from vehicle use. Weekend frequency was added to Brackendale and Highland routes. Handy Dart added weekend service, and the transit feature plan was endorsed that will see an approximate doubling of service hours in the coming years. With housing an ongoing critical issue as the population continues to grow as a result of demand for what Squamish has to offer as a great community, we continue to focus on ways in which the municipality can support access to stable, affordable housing. With the recently opened Spirit Creek Apartments, this is a demonstration of how partnerships can work to bring affordable housing to residents. This project, a partnership with the district, BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and Sea to Sky Community Services, is a model for the potential we have. These developments do take time, and we continue to work with our partners to pursue more of them. Squamish, the SCHS is the Thank you. Squamish Community Housing Society, interpreting the acronym, which is a relatively new society that we're excited about, undertook a strategic planning process and is working to set up operational priorities and functions to enable the society to pursue affordable housing projects in the near future. The society is working to build capacity for potential housing construction. The development cost charge bylaw was updated and the community amenity contribution policy update progressed to align with current community needs. This policy particularly is scheduled to conclude in 2023. As a reminder, affordable units are now able to be secured within developments, so staff continue toward this goal as new applications are received. In terms of economy and local jobs, Squamish's economy continues to rebound after the pandemic, and the district's work to support local business growth as well as attract new business investment continues. InvestSquamish.ca website to attract investment and support business scaling has seen 8,100 users and 11,000 user sessions since it launched in April 2022. Provincial investment into Squamish Adventure Centre upgrades have been realized. In addition to the $700,000, an additional $1 million has also just been announced towards its revitalization to support our local tourism industry. The Emerging Sector Roadmap and Action Plan Outdoor Recreation Enterprise, the acronym being SOAR, which is a not-for-profit society established to support the development of an outdoor recreation business network. The Innovation Working Group was initiated to stimulate, coordinate, and respond to Squamish's diverse innovation needs. Work towards securing a net gain of employment lands and space progressed with the development of guiding principles, policy recommendations, and actions to support decision-making. And the final pillar in the previous strategic plan is neighborhood connectivity and public spaces. Council's strategic plan aimed to progress to shovel-ready and beyond on 3 priority facilities within the last term. Squamish Fire Hall number 1, Alex Monroe, opened for operations in August, the first of 3 critical essential services facilities to be replaced. Fire Hall number 2 on Tantalus Road began construction, and the estimated completion is mid-2024. Public Works facility funding was confirmed. Final design considerations are ongoing before construction begins, and we look forward to bringing an update on that facility to Council before the summer break in August. Brennan Park Recreation Centre upgrades are progressing with a $16 million project to the Recreation Centre and funding confirmed in the financial plan for a new splash park and playground, pickleball court relocation, and off-leash dog area. 11 neighborhood nooks, weather-protected spaces, were added to neighborhood parks in response to feedback in the public space survey report. Dentville Neighborhood Park was complete. As well of note, this spring within this pillar, almost 37-hectare land conservancy was finalized for the future Garibaldi Springs Ecological Reserve. In addition to the 4 priority areas, other priority areas included natural hazard mitigation, marine access, emergency planning, youth, childcare, arts, and culture. 2 highlights in 2022 saw progress made towards the Marine Action Strategy implementation and work towards establishing a wildfire development permit area. With our previous strategic plan, we had a separate organizational plan, and for the benefit of the community that are watching, in our most recent strategic plan, the organizational priorities and strategies are incorporated so that it's one strategic plan. But in terms of summing up what was accomplished last year, the day-to-day work of the district is implemented within a culture of continuous improvement. And as mentioned, the organizational plan supported the implementation of the strategic plan while remaining focused on delivering effective service and transparency. Looking forward, these areas of focus are embedded within the new strategic plan and reported on under the 4 pillars in the coming slides that organize our work for 2023 to 2026. Some highlights in terms of our people pillar: our respectful workplace policy was updated. We completed an employee engagement survey. Staff retention efforts, succession planning model, and performance management program were completed, as well as professional development. And our IDEA strategy, inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility strategy, has been and continues to be incorporated into our human resources practices. In terms of effective service highlights, the technology transformation program pressed forward. Our major our foundational blocks are all now in place. Systems are integrated, providing reliable data to improve decision-making, transparency, and security. Property taxes and utility billing software system and processes were replaced. The My City online portal progressed towards launch to offer, in phase 1, access to online services for business licensing and permitting. This has been soft launched to some customers this spring. So while the community may not see a fulsome launch of online services, they are coming and the foundation is in place, which we're very excited about at a staff level. In terms of effective service, phase 2 integrated stormwater management plan was completed for Howe Sound and Squamish River watersheds. Our asset management plan was endorsed by council. That identifies what assets the district owns, for example, underground infrastructure, parks, equipment, and roads, what they are worth, almost $900 million, when they need to be replaced, and how they will be funded. The district's first natural asset management strategy was endorsed, which identifies the natural assets valued in Squamish at over $1.5 billion that support community services. An example would be the Ring Creek Aquifer that provides drinking water and wetlands and creeks that collect and convey stormwater. This plan also outlines a plan to protect and preserve those assets. In terms of building bridges, council-to-council meetings took place to strengthen relationships and set priorities for collaboration with Squamish Nation. Collaborative engineering projects continue to progress. The CHM Reserve Eagle Viewing Dike received a grant for seismic and environmental impact assessments, and that is a project that we are co-developing and implementing with Squamish Nation. Our inclusion strategy, Ideas in Action, was adopted to further inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility goals across the district. This slide here provides a snapshot of some of the capital projects and infrastructure works that were completed in 2022. Important projects that fulfill on the recommendations of the district's many master plans. And the annual report provides excellent detail into all of these infrastructure upgrades. We're very excited as a district through this annual report to build its objectives for the coming year around the pillars and goals of the 2023-2026 strategic plan. Centered on 4 overarching strategic outcomes, a series of objective statements and corresponding tactics will shape our work this year and provide the basis of our reporting in 2023. This is a screenshot on the right of our community performance indicators, which can be found on our website. It was launched in 2018 and continues to be tracked to provide transparency and data-driven decision-making. New this year is the transition to an in-house site, which is leveraging the district's technology investment in the Esri platform. Previously, we used an outside organization, but it's now in-house, which is very exciting. It supports the open data guiding principles endorsed by council. Collaboration between many district departments for data and narrative updates, and is led by a working group from IT, planning, economic development, and communications. We just had a presentation from our finance team. So part of the annual report includes audited financial statements. They're required. and they include the permissive tax exemptions and details of any declarations of disqualification made against individual council members during the previous year. And I'm happy to say there were none. And to wrap up, the annual report closes with an invitation to our community to connect with us in many different ways. Feedback and input is a year-round process that we welcome, and we thank all those who engage in dialogue with us throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Ms. Glendale or about the annual report? It's an amazing document. We have them in physical copies if the digital copy isn't doing it for you, and you'd like one. We have them. Probably any of the councillors and myself will have them on hand, and they'll be available at City Hall. Are they elsewhere? Do these end up at the library? The hard copies? I know it's an obscure question, but at Municipal Hall. Yep. So come on down if you'd like to have a physical copy, and it's available online as well. I'm just being heckled for technical here, but Councillor Stoner, did you have?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Thank you, Ms. Glendale, and to all the staff for not only a great annual report, but for all the work that went in over the past year to get us here. My question is a high level one. Through the pandemic, and especially coming out of the pandemic, we talked a lot about kind of slowing the pace of work, actually, in order to make sure that we could be resilient from a staff perspective in terms of the amount of information that was coming through council table, as well as the amount of information that our community was able to digest through that time. That was actually, there was a lot going on, and we had lots of discussions around what was appropriate to move and how much volume of work was appropriate to move. There's a lot going on in our community, and as the annual report has shown, is we haven't actually really slowed down very much. So I think this is more just a check-in question on the pace of work from an organizational perspective, and how you see as a CEO how we're managing at that level.
Through the mayor, thank you very much for that question. It is definitely top of mind for me and the leadership team. We are in the midst right now of further ground truthing the new strategic plan against the tactics that staff have mapped out, which align with the master plans. Combining organizational plan strategies, so the reliable service delivery, particularly in the strategic plan, is really helpful that everything's in the same plan and working in concert in terms of priorities. A huge challenge for us right now is the load that the WLNG and Fortis project are bringing to our doorstep, essentially, as staff. And we are wrestling right now with managing that capacity, working with the industry, so the businesses themselves, to support that capacity, and then ensuring that the tactics that are mapped are deliverable. And that's a work in progress. In fact, we're digging into that in July. If needed, staff will come back and, in any event, we will be coming back with the tactics and what is possible, and the timeline of those tactics against the strategic plan may have to shift so that we can look after staff capacity and ultimately ensure that council succeeds in delivering that strategic plan according to the deadlines that we've communicated. So it's ongoing, I guess, is the short answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Thanks. Yes, thank you for the very, very thorough document and presentation. There's a lot of really great information in there. You mentioned that the property taxes and utility billing software system and processes were being replaced or had been replaced. I was wondering how users will experience this change, or if they'll even notice the change from the user's perspective.
I think CFO might be better informed to answer this question. I don't want to overstep.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for that question. Yeah, the next sort of phase of the property and utility taxes will be that the user can not only log in to their own profile online as well as be able to paying online. So that is the really big phase two next step that we're really excited about as staff. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Great. Any other questions on this? Yep. Would you want to move? I think we move receipt. So
Yeah, I will move receipt.
okay, and second by Councillor Hamilton. And would you like to speak to it? Go ahead.
Yeah, just another echo of thanks. As I previously said, all my comments stand. This is an amazing document. It represents an amazing amount of work from our staff, from the council table previous and this current council. And hopefully it is mandatory community reading. It is a great place to point folks to articulate just how much has been done. One really minor suggestion for future iterations on the reach out, we can put council's email address on there. I've had that request a few times at Coffee with Council this morning. It's an easy email to remember, but it's one that I think is helpful for folks to have quick access to. It's my minor edit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is a good and very minor edit. So, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'll also extend a thank you to staff for the great work, the time and the effort that went into what I think is a very important document from two perspectives. It's a transparency tool and it's an accountability tool. It shows our community the work that we've done and how we've done it. So it's one thing to share with the community what we plan to do. We do that a lot. And it's a whole other thing to publish a document like this that actually outlines what we did. And as in life, often what we plan to do doesn't necessarily line up completely with what we actually did. But this document at least shows our community in a very transparent way what we did actually accomplish and holds us to account, not just for what we had planned to do, but what we plan to do going into the future. And CAO Glenday pointed out in the presentation that there's a culture of continuous improvement in the District of Squamish. And I want to highlight that because for me, it tells our community that we as an organization, as an institution, recognize we're not perfect. We sometimes do make errors. And when we do, we learn from those imperfections so that we can do better going into the future. And just to reiterate my own thoughts about mandatory reading from the previous issue, I would love it if every new resident coming into Squamish was given one of these reports, and somehow high school students were also made to at least see the front page of this document, because I know that more than a few of them with that would delve into it out of interest. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate this report. There's so much ahead of us and so much that we want to do and need to do and that we focus on. I often forget to look back and realize how much we've done, and it's really a little bit awe-inspiring to look back at what we did. And one of the other things that stood out to me is not only the staff work and council work, but there's a lot of community members and not-for-profits, and this is, I think, what we've achieved over the last year. We really have done as a whole community, and I think that's partly why we've been able to do so much. So I expect we will continue in that vein, and it's just great to be part of this whole process. On some of the capacity questions from my colleague, I think it is something that we should make sure we're staying focused on. I'm glad to hear that we are, and just sort of reiterate the idea that we stay focused on community priorities and not necessarily proponent priorities. They may not always align, and we may not always have a choice, but the more we can remain focused on our community priorities, the better that will serve our community. But fantastic document and great to reflect back over the last year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll venture my own then. I'll echo the thanks to staff, not only for the report, but for all the work that is that was achieved and is communicated through through the report. It really is remarkable. And in this work, we're never done. There's going to be folks after we're all long and gone, hopefully not sitting in this exact room working on these on local government issues. So being able to take stock of what has been accomplished and map out sort of the next steps and aspirations going forward, I think is critical. And reading this, I was sort of, it helped reinvigorate me on a few things, because it can be challenging as we're trying to move the needle on some of the more complex challenges facing the community. So I really appreciate this, and it will live on a shelf where I have quick access to it to remind myself of the progress we have made until we get to this time next year. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
She wasn't planning on it, but she can.
Okay. So, Council, the next item is the Squamish Sustainability Corporation AGM. And we do have staff here to answer questions if there are any questions about the documentation, but there's not a presentation. Oh, you have a small presentation? Or a small update?
I am able to provide a very quick update.
Great.
if
I
that's
will.
req-
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I'm Kate Mulligan, Economic Development Officer and Chair of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation, and I'm joined by Ms. Souza, who is Manager, Director of Finance. I'm just going to provide a quick update regarding the Squamish Sustainability Corporation. Currently, the Squamish Sustainability Corporation is largely in holding capacity. It does hold an interest in the district's oceanfront joint venture, as well as continues to provide operational support for the Squamish Adventure Center with the help of real estate and facilities and economic development within the district. Currently, the directors oversee the day-to-day or the management of the center itself, of the Adventure Center itself, and that is pretty much the current capacity of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for staff while we have them before we go into the process here? No? Okay. So these motions need to be done I think we have a we worked it we have a script. I think we're on. If we go off track, please let us know, but I think we have this. So so in the agenda, we have the recommendations, and they need to be done individually. So I'll read them out to keep us on track. So there's a suite of motions here. So the first motion is that Mayor Hurford be appointed to vote on behalf of the shareholder during the June 20th, 2023 annual general meeting of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So next up, we have that Mayor Hurford be directed to accept the financial statements of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation for 2022. Hold on. I have a that's down here. Conferring with staff. 1 second, please.
I think we do need this one, and it's missing from.
But not.
Yeah, It's missing.
Okay, so this is a piece that was missing from the published agenda. But it's that Mayor Hurford be directed to accept the financial statements of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation for 2022. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? Motion carries. And then that Mayor Hurford be directed to appoint BDO as auditors of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation. Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Pettingill. All in favor? Motion carries. And that Mayor Hurford be directed to appoint Councillor French, Councillor Hamilton, Kate Mulligan, Kirby Brown, and Torrin Savyard to the board of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor Greenlaw. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you for that. So now we need to, I'll be looking to council for a motion that council of the District of Squamish resolve to suspend the special business meeting temporarily in order to sit as the shareholder of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation at the meeting of that corporation that has been scheduled at this time and place. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, for those of you that haven't witnessed this before, I now get to go into a meeting with myself, and it is as strange as it sounds. So here we go. Voting on behalf of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation, I resolve that the financial statements of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation for 2022 be accepted by the shareholder, that BDO be appointed auditors for the Squamish Sustainability Corporation, that Councillor French, Councillor Hamilton, Kate Mulligan, Kirby Brown, and Torrin Savyard be appointed to the board of the Squamish Sustainability Corporation. So do I move those? Do I vote on them myself? So those are so resolved. Thank you. And
To terminate the SSC.
right. And the Squamish Sustainability Corporation Annual General Meeting will now terminate. So thank you. Back to our regular scheduled programming. Thank you. So the next item we have is UBCM minister meeting requests for council follow-up. And so I'm just going to pull up my notes on that. I did, yeah. We are back to the special. And so council, at the last meeting we discussed, we narrowed down the topics and sort of assigned some folks to the various pieces. The staff report, so we have Councillor Hamilton around. Maybe we'll just go in order that it appears here. It was Councillor Hamilton on Squamish Recreation Site expansion. Would you like to speak to it?
So the recreational sites and recreation in Squamish is obviously a major contributing factor to in effect, our identity as Squamish, our brand identity, hardwired for adventure. The ability for our residents and visitors to get outdoors is a key component of our community. We've seen significant pressure on our community infrastructure and our natural resources, our recreation sites, due to both resident and visitors enjoying this amazing resource we have. And I believe it's in our interest. I believe we have an obligation to promote and advocate for having additional provincial resources in the form of provincially managed recreation sites in and around our district so that we can manage this influx of visitors. I've stopped short here of suggesting mechanisms, which resources and how they should be, but rather promoting and advocating that we should have more, and then that will trigger, hopefully, a discussion with the province on which infrastructures would be most effective.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Councillor Hamilton on this approach? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
May I make two suggestions, Councillor Hamilton? As a new councillor, you would not have been present for the presentation from the now reorganized ministry responsible for this that took place, I believe, in early 2022. I believe we should make a point of ensuring you have access to that presentation. It was a very thorough presentation by Mr. Scott Shaw McLaren and a colleague, and I'm sure our staff may be able to pull that up, but it was fascinating and interesting and important assembly of information concerning recreational pressures, and was well received by our council last year. And that's one suggestion, that we have access to that, or the persons attending on our behalf at the proposed meeting have that information handy in the form of the presentation delivered. The second presentation I have, last we discussed this, is concerning the Mampcombe Forest Service Road and Refuse Creek. As an attendee of the last minister's session on this topic, I noted that the minister's staff were very well prepared with detailed information illustrating the research they've done and the challenges that exist for developing new recreation sites. However, one area that was not given attention by staff, and it has been we have expressed interest in it, is the Refuse Creek area. And just a clarification, the Refuse Creek is already a Forest Service recreation site. However, immediately adjacent to it is an abandoned quarry, which has been the focus of interest for a new site. And this, I'm just passing it all along as clarification when I speak or others speak of Refuse Creek. There is a recreation site. It's not adequate. It's small. It's old. But next to it is potential expansion area. Just those two suggestions for further dialogue with the province. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Did you have a response or any comment on that?
Thank you very much for the content. I do look forward to reading the presentation from Scott Shaw McLaren.
Thank you. And I think also for our purposes today, really focusing on the ask to make sure that we understand what we're asking for, I think is critical. So if council could give, Councillor Hamilton has, I'm not sure, did everyone receive a copy of Councillor Hamilton's? Oh, that's the blue. I'm looking at an electronic one. Thank you. So I'd be looking for edits there so we understand exactly, and then we can build that backgrounder for context and that's great points that Councillor Anderson brought up, and we can work on that I don't know, that needs to be part of the ask itself. Sorry, do you have a comment on that? Yep.
Just to open it up, I am absolutely in favor of if specificity will potentially gain us some traction here. I'm absolutely open to suggestions on how we can be specific on what sites we might want to develop or what ways we might want to develop.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, and I think this is always the balance of where we're at by June 30th, putting in the request. And then the next step is usually our staff help us put together a briefing note, which will have some more context and detail. But that would be my only suggestion, is if there is time before the 30th, is to run this past the tourism management roundtable, just to see if they have any specific requests. But we could also do that after the fact for the briefing note. But they have lots of good data around the number of visitors that have gone up the Squamish Valley, for example. That could just help strengthen it. But that's not something that you'd have at your fingertips.
Thank you. My suggestion here is in the request, the context building I think is good, and there could be other reinforcing points, but really I'm focusing on the request. So we request consideration of expanded provincial managed recreation. I think I'd like to request expansion of provincially managed recreation facilities in Squamish. and and I think I like the last point of considering Squamish's proximity to Vancouver. Both day use and overnight facilities are in high demand. I think that's a great point to make. But the middle of that sentence where it's facilities near Squamish should accommodate the influx of visitors to our community. Something about answering the demand of tourism, or I think there's something that's a little bit, I'm going to stew on that a little bit, just the finishing there, but I think the rest of it is great. And we have met with the province previously on this topic, so they'll be familiar with it. It's not, something there in that last bit of sentence, which I'll mull over as we move through. Anything else on this? Maybe we can come back to that all by myself sometime, or does anyone else have any edits for this or suggestions? Or does anyone have an issue, how about with firming up this ask to, rather than requesting consideration, just request expanded provincial managed recreation facilities as a first edit? Is that okay? I don't see any. Okay. All right. So we'll move on, and I'll see if something, I'd appreciate some help on sort of to accommodate the influx of visitors to community. I think we could clean that up a little bit, but let's just move through and then we can maybe circle back to that detail. Councillor Stoner, I have you next with environmental climate change and energy mines and low carbons innovation.
Yeah, thanks. I drafted just a high level background and request for a joint minister meeting with Minister Heyman from Environment and Climate Change and Minister Osborne from Energy Mines, Low Carbon Innovation. This is really just speaking to the ongoing challenges that we're having with wood fiber LNG and Fortis Eagle Mountain gas pipeline projects. In particular, I think the two things that I heard around the table last week was the considerations around the conditions that are attached to their EA certificates. So the Community Services and Infrastructure Management Plan that is intended to be developed in consultation with local governments and some of the challenges around that, as well as the expectations and the proponents' failure to meet those expectations around public consultation and public communication. So the request for the ministers is really just a joint meeting to convey our ongoing challenges that we're having with these two projects, our concerns around the environmental assessment office and their processes, and to discuss the impacts these projects in particular are having on our local housing and community services. The request is fairly broad, but I think that's just the nature of where we're at with these projects. And I still think it is really important for the ministers to hear directly from council at the District of Squamish. So I know that there's ongoing staff to staff discussions, but I do think it's still important for the ministers to hear the direct implication from the political level as well. So I think that's why this is important.
Thank you. One suggestion I had for this is adding the stretch on our resources internally. So capacity, just in sort of your final three, having our local on our, maybe on our internal capacity, housing and community services is a suggestion. If that's, I know it will come up in conversation, but it's one of the pieces here, I think, is that with the more coordinated effort, I think it would take less capacity on our end to engage with them and their various steps in the process. Yeah, Councillor French.
I don't have any edits or suggestions. Simply want to thank my colleague for taking seriously, maybe not quite the exact word I'm looking for, my own request a couple of weeks ago to make sure that this particular issue is shared out to other members of council because of the divisive nature in our community of this particular project. So Councillor Stoner, thank you for sharing this in advance before it came to this table and asking for feedback. I appreciate that collaborative nature in this process.
Thank you. Council, any other suggestions on this? Councillor Penigo?
Yeah, I think the ask is good. Just, you know, it may be a bit of wordsmithing in the background, which won't do today, but just my reflection is making sure the ministry understands that it's not just wood fiber and it's much broader than just the CISMP. That's sort of one of the current flashpoints, but it's sort of indicative of the whole thing. And so just want to make sure that that when we provide the background, they're sort of clear that, again, here's a good current example, but it's the same thing over and over again. It's both of them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
I'd like to ask a question. I don't know if this is I don't know if I'd go as far as suggesting this. This is a request for a meeting between Council, District of Squamish Council, and provincial ministers. Would it be sensible to request representatives from Woodfibre and Fortis be present at that meeting so that it can be a three-way meeting? There would be advantages and disadvantages to that. I don't even know if it's possible, but it's one thought that I had, that having everybody in the room sometimes solves problems faster. Unfortunately, also sometimes causes problems.
Yeah, thank you for that. And these meetings are meetings at UBCM, which we have 15 minutes with the minister. So this is really, and I think that meeting that you're suggesting could be an outcome of this meeting, and that would be the kind of thing that we'd be looking. Yeah, that could be sort of a next step from this. But in that 15 minutes, it's our time to convey the concerns and really outline the challenges we're having, and then a next step from perhaps from the minister could be something such as that. So yes, but not in this step in the process. Councillor Stoner, did you have something else on that, or?
I just add that not the ministers per se, but the ministries and staff and the proponents are constantly in collaborative meetings in terms of the implementation thereof. We know that the proponents not infrequently show up at ministers' offices and speak to them about the challenges of working with Squamish. And so I do think it is important for us to have the opportunity to directly share our feedback on the other side of that.
Thank you for that. Councillor French, do you have something on this?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And my thoughts are very similar to what I heard from you. And I want to thank Councillor Hamilton for asking this question, because I think having this conversation alone has been productive. And I do agree that it's not really necessarily the time, the place for that type of meeting. And we'll agree with you, Mayor, that this could be an outcome. Like, this exact thought and proposal could be something that comes out of that quick discussion with the minister.
Yeah, thank you. Council, anyone else on this one before we move on to the next? No? Okay. So the next one, just going on the list, is transportation infrastructure around transit expansion funding, and that's something that I think I will move through the SLRD. And I'll work with colleagues there to get that. I think that the regional, my one question though was the SLRD is the proper place, I think, to have the regional transit discussion, although I'm happy to bring it up at any District of Squamish led meeting as well. So I think that's the place for that. This would also have an ask. It's a two-part ask. The other part would be internal funding, transit expansion funding, which is a concern with Whistler and Pemberton as well. So is council okay with that part of it living in that process with SLRD, with myself as and Councillor Stoner, Pettingill as reps to advance that portion of our advocacy here, or should we do our own on internal and leave try to do our own on internal, because these are also requests, there's no guarantees here, and then have the SLRD piece focused specifically on the regional aspect. So that's the question. Should we do our own on internal expansion? Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, I do think that we would do well in putting in our own requests for internal transit expansion funding. I think that's important. We also have a few unique issues that we're trying to manage with our expansion internally, in particular where the bus depot is going to go. So I think having that conversation directly with the minister, at least putting in the request, would be important. And then we can leave the regional transit piece to a coordinated meeting. Again, they're 15 minutes, so they're short. So I think asking for 2 is not a bad thing.
Yep, thank you. Councillor French, did I see your hand? And Councillor Hamilton, did I see your hand as well? No, Councillor French and then Pettingill.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'm aligning with Councillor Stoner on agreeing 2 meetings, 1 local, 1 regional. And I'll add that I had the good fortune of sharing lunch with MLA Jordan Sturdy at the Chamber of Commerce Mayor's luncheon the other day. And MLA Sturdy was very clear in expressing his support, if we could do it, of having not just all of the, or as many as possible of the regional elected officials in such a minister's meeting on regional transit, but also the Squamish Nation and the Lillooet. As MLA Sturdy feels that those 2 organizations have significant sway and influence on the potential of bringing the creation of regional transit. So I share that wisdom from MLA Sturdy.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, thanks. And I apologize, I just sent it around, but my second topic for the Minister of Housing involves, or is very much related to public transit in supporting our affordable housing. So I don't know if that quite gets to, directly enough to what we want to talk about in terms of local transit, but I think we will definitely touch on it with that minister, assuming the topic is accepted.
Yeah, thank you. I think this piece is so important. I thank you for this direction. This is where I was thinking as well, is that we do these in two pieces, but it touches on many things. So this absolutely should come up in Minister of Housing meeting as well. And as a lot of the work is being done in the name of sort of affordability. And I think about affordability. I think we all think about affordability more broadly than exclusively the housing, and transit is a big part of that as well. Councillor Stoner?
I'd also suggest, because we do have the opportunity to request on multiple topics, and previously in our last discussion last week, we moved the Highway 99 intersections down to a staff-to-staff meeting. But I think we could elevate them back up as a secondary topic, because there are some real tensions with our ability to achieve our housing targets, especially in some of our neighborhoods, without having more provincial investment in some of our highway intersections. So I think both that investment in expansion of transit as well as accommodating some of the highway intersections can kind of go hand in hand.
Thank you. And I think no, I like that. I think that's those two things tie together. And I think that in your housing discussions, that sort of bringing up the interrelated pieces are important as well. So, okay, I will thank you as me that direction to sort of to go forward with this. So I'll launch from there around local transit funding and improvement 99 intersections, and then the regional transit piece. I'll work with my colleagues at the SLRD to advance that discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Just further to Councillor Stoner's point, if you can bring up 3 topics, shouldn't you just put Darrell Bay on there as well to put it on their radar? You probably won't get to it, like it'll probably be a lower priority, but it's a conversation we're going to want to have in the near future, isn't it?
I think right now I'd be more comfortable with the 2 topics, given we have 15 minutes. And when we talk about, I guess, capacity of our organization, when I look at introducing the Darrell Bay topic and its complexity and the technical nature of it, and linking it with WLNG and so on, I think that would take the whole meeting if we're to bring that topic. I think it's a pretty big one to and more of its complexity. So I think that can live with staff, and but elevate the 99 intersections for now. Is everyone okay with that approach? That makes sense. Councillor Anderson?
I would agree that the Darrell Bay topic is deserving attention in other ways and elsewhere. It is also an evolving picture. Secondly, on the Highway 99 intersections, let's keep in mind, and I appreciate the point that the capacity issues do relate to our community growth management, but they also relate to at Alice Lake and at Site B, Macro Forest Service Road, other bundles of issues, so that we think of it holistically and and be careful that we do give attention to the whole package of intersection issues. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Council. Next is we had the Transportation Infrastructure Staff-to-Staff meeting, which we've moved the Highway 99 dangerous intersections up to be tied in with the transit discussion. So we'll leave Darrell Bay there, I think is where we landed. So move on to the Children and Family Development. Yes, go ahead.
I'd suggest if possible, staff should still bring it up at a staff-to-staff meeting. Then they'll get different technical information from a conversation around the 99 highway intersections. So I think important to raise with the minister, but also still keep it on a staff agenda as well.
Okay. No, that makes sense to me as well. Okay, so then moving on to the and if there is anything else in our discussion going forward that we would like to put to that we feel maybe needs to live with a staff-to-staff, then we'll come back to that column. So Children and Family Development, Councillor Greenlaw, you had, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've emailed everyone a copy of the meeting request that I drafted. The directive I had was to request a meeting with the Ministry of Children and Family Development, but I wonder if it should be a request to the Ministry of Education and Childcare instead, given that the request revolves around childcare spaces, and I'm open to feedback from any colleagues on that. I intentionally left the ask broad as just increased childcare subsidies, because I think that another potential positive outcome from this would be increased funding towards encouraging people to go into ECE education, right? Early childhood education programs, because that is one of the problems we're having. It's a very complex issue, but part of it is that people are not going into the education programs. Like we don't have the volume going in that we require. Yeah, so what I would like to do in this meeting is advocate for an increase in $10 a day childcare spaces for sure, and point out that it is effectively a misogynist policy that we aren't funding childcare more. Yeah, and I'd like to discuss, I would also like to discuss some of the systemic issues that are creating this problem, such as like low pay for childcare workers and such, but frame it around increasing spaces and availability within Squamish. I can read the background if you'd like as well.
Council, everyone has that in their email, and we'll make sure that it gets out to the public as well. Any comments on this? Feedback? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
I think it's really important to be supporting and advocating for programs like the $10 a day childcare program and mechanisms to make it more viable, more effective in our community. I think Squamish, like so many communities in BC, are struggling with this same thing. And I think we absolutely need to apply our voice to the many outcrying for more childcare.
Thank you. They have Councillor Stoner and then Pettingill.
Yeah, thank you for this, and agree that this is an important meeting. I think you're correct that it should be Ministry of Education, given the shift in childcare falling under that ministry as of now. A few other things that I think we can pick up on and articulate in our requests, which carries through some previous advocacy that we've done and we've heard from our childcare roundtable. And this gets a bit detailed, but there's a gap in the wage enhancement program that they have, and it's not it doesn't extend to those working in supported child development programs. So we're actually losing a lot of staff from those who support children with special needs in particular. because they're not eligible for the provincial wage subsidy program. So I have the backgrounder that we used for last year's UBCM meetings, and I will forward that to you. Sorry, I didn't do that in advance. But there's a few key pieces that we could pick up from that and just make sure that we're extending. The other one that I think we should call out is a thanks to the province for the funding that they provided for the Valley Cliff childcare facility. It'll be a huge benefit to our community, but also articulating the continued challenges that we're having in terms of the cost of building. I think we're upwards of $45,000 a space now. And so really just reiterating that challenge of creating new spaces in our community and really drawing that picture for the minister about it is this complex issue. One of it is subsidized childcare spaces. One is actually having childcare spaces to begin with. And then the third piece is making sure that we're actually paying the folks who are working there. So we can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yes, thank you for that feedback. I did have a little blurb in there originally about not having a living wage for these people in these jobs and not having increased wages for people who need increased education for the work that they're doing. But I pared it down to 700 characters. But thank you. I'd like to discuss that a bit further with you after. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, just on the on this whole topic, the $10 a day when those spots come online, that's helpful to parents, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's viable to run a business. And we're having to use CACs to make spaces affordable. I heavily rely on that, and I understand CAC regulations may be changing. It also means that, you know, the sort of gray area CAC that we really depend on for other community services, we're using for something the province should be taking care of. And so there's all these other knock-on effects. And so that whole CAC thing maybe needs to be mentioned as part of the discussion.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That was a point I've been making. I'll continue to make that. This is an area where we are doing everything we can do, everything we can figure out to do with the tools in our toolbox, but it is picking up the slack of a provincial responsibility. But doing something is the right thing to do. But we need to continue to advocate. So I also think the sort of the pace that we are achieving new, and we have had some great new facilities sort of lined up that'll be coming. But we do have a needs assessment that shows that we need a lot more. And I think this is an opportunity to communicate out what that need is. I agree the $10 daycare is $10 a day childcare spaces are incredibly important. We also have a need at sort of the market rate. Like it's kind of across the board. So any thoughts on the specific ask versus the step up and do your job in childcare in that broad ask? There were some specific pieces around policy I heard on the wages and where the gaps are, and then there's that bigger or that sort of higher level piece around more broadly, we need all the childcare spaces we can find, and we need the province to help us realize that. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
I'm wading in here without any actual background knowledge, but it seems to me like the daycare spaces attached to elementary schools are a great opportunity. There's one at Garibaldi Highlands. There's the Valley Cliff one that the province has funded. I don't know about Brackendale, Mamquam, and there's one at Squamish Elementary. Could we push to have, if we wanted a specific ask, push to say we will find the land if you come up with the money to build a facility like the Valley Cliff? Not our land. Agreed. But we can work with ST48 to provide the land for the facilities.
Yeah, thank you. I think that similarly here with the school, with the school board facilities, I also think with BC Housing having, it took a lot of work to get the Foundry and the Youth Hub into BC Housing build, and And similarly, I think those are where childcare spaces should be included in, and it's that extra piece that they're not doing. So every time we touch this, there's all these pieces. So should we go broader or more focused on, I think is where I'm at. I think that could be an ask there. They do have a program, which is how we got to those ones established now. So it's continuing to support that program. We have, Councillor Greenlaw had this ask focused on the $10 a day. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I think we can keep it broad, but broad and focused. So broad request, but on more $10 a day daycare spaces, on continued or in additional funding for childcare spaces through the existing funding pool or the funding mechanism, and then making sure that there's a competitive wage grid for EC workers and support workers.
Okay, can we, Councillor Greenlaw, do you think you can get that into 300 characters in our ask? Or how do you, how are you feeling as this discussion's evolving?
Yeah, I feel okay about it. I mean, the background for all of these issues is pretty similar. Should I break this into more than one topic? Yes. So I'll do 3 separate topics. Is that what's happening here? Okay. Yes. Well, just prepare to be emailed with this and requests for feedback.
Okay. So I'm going to go to staff. As we're going through this, do we, how far down the road do we need to be to submit these in this meeting this is our last meeting before the deadline? Is that correct? I just want to make sure that we're achieving what we need to achieve here. I feel like we're making progress. So let's make sure we're going far enough.
Hi, Council. Terry Murray, Executive Assistant. Through the chair, I think with what I'm hearing today, I have enough to draft to submit the requests. However, I think maybe the backgrounders and the staff briefing notes will have to contain a good portion of what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. And those can be, do those need to be ready for the 30th as well? Or does it all go together? Is that a later?
That's a later, in early September.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think we're going to the appropriate level here. So we're gonna break it into 3 asks, as you said. Great. Anything else on this topic before we move on to, or I didn't miss any hands today? Nope, okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Greenlaw. The health one, I'll work with SLRD on, and really, we have strong alignment at SLRD and the regional hospital district on what those needs are. And my thought, of course, it has to go through another meeting like this to get there and to see, but the kinds of things I'll be looking for there are reinforcing that our hospital is a regional asset, and acknowledging that there is a master planning process, a long overdue master planning process underway by Vancouver Coastal Health. However, there are some needs in the community in the corridor that need to be addressed or deserve addressing prior to, like, they're well enough documented. Let's go on these items, and there's a list around the including some things at the hospital here. So I'll circulate that as that forms, but I'll work with the colleagues there. So Public Safety and Solicitor General, we have Councillor French, Highway 99, closures and automated speed enforcement. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. And I have been consulting a fair bit with former Lions Bay Mayor Carl Burr on this topic. He's been super helpful, super accommodating, and provided me with some great information. I mean, I think everybody in this room at one point or another has been touched in some way by lengthy highway closures that are caused by crashes on Highway 99, leading to missed flights, missed ferries, delayed commercial deliveries, just significant frustration all around. So the request, I've actually done a minor edit to it, and that comes out of feedback from former Mayor Burr in Lions Bay. I'll just bring that up. So the request being, building on the endorsement of UBCM in 2018, the District of Squamish requests the provincial government launch an automated speed enforcement system, also known as speed over distance and point-to-point enforcement pilot project on Highway 99 to average out speeds on the highway and reduce the crash rate on the route. So the edit there is just simply pointing out that UBCM endorsed this back in 2018, and we're looking to revisit it.
Thank you. No, yeah, go ahead.
So that's the background, the title, and the request you all have. And then hearing in the room today, it's pretty clear to me that I am going to find an opportunity in this meeting to mention regional transit, because I think it very nicely ties in with this and is part of the solution in reducing the crash rate on the route.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Councillor French, the focus of your request is on the speed, and you've also mentioned taking the opportunity to address regional transit. Our correspondent Matthew Pog a few weeks ago, a letter that we discussed in council a little while back, also gives attention to not only prevention of accidents, but what happens when they do happen. And he broke it down into two categories. One is increased communication during accident events. For example, at U-turn locations to give people opportunity to escape the highway safely. People are stranded and do have needs. This results in safety and inconvenience issues, including health-related. That there be increased attention to protocol for drivers to raise awareness as to what to do and what not to do in these situations. The other category that Mr. Pog addressed was the need for local resources for our law enforcement to address more efficiently in accident investigation. So in summary, while the request focuses on the speed and the prevention of accidents, we might also give attention, for your consideration, Councillor French, to accident response resources and mitigation strategies, including safety, to address closure impacts. I'll repeat that as a summary. Accident response resources are inadequate, is the assumption, and a need for mitigation strategies, including safety, to address closure impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor French. Do you have a...
Yeah, these are great suggestions. I made some notes, and while I don't think that these necessarily fit into the backgrounder and the request, they certainly will form part of my conversation with the minister.
Thank you. I found in the background, I think focusing on the closures is great, but I think it's worth mentioning that this is also the safety aspect of it. The injury and death is part that we're trying to avoid, and then inconvenience is real, but it's kind of the third tier, and then we can focus on that. Like these are all related topics, but I think the something in the background that sort of shows that we're looking to prevent the crashes in the first place as well, which I know is implied when we read this, but I think it needs to be stated to as well.
Yeah, that's great feedback too, and I intentionally kept the background super tight, anticipating I might get some great feedback that I can incorporate into the background, and I am going to take that and use it for the background.
Yeah, thank you. And you do touch on it in the request, which yeah, crash rate. I don't know the right language to use for that. Crash rate might be it, but there's perhaps someone in Miss Latimer, someone could help us with the appropriate terminology, which might be this. But I just want to run it. It'd be great to run it past staff. Or do you have a suggestion, Ms. Glendy? No, you're just listening. Okay. Okay. Anyone else on this topic? No. Great. So we've got some suggested edits there, but we'll get it across the line. Next is housing. We had Councillor Stoner and Pettingill on this one. Who wants to kick us off? Looks like that's you, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of say I was looking at the agenda again. I think Councillor Hamilton's topic belongs under Ministry Environment and Climate Change Strategy. They have a conservation and recreation under that portfolio, which is the rec sites. And I think it's usually the parliamentary secretary under Heyman, under the Environment Ministry, that takes care of that. So just want to make sure we have the right ministry in person for that one.
Okay, so Ms. Murray, is this something that that we can vet? We can make sure that we're asking of the right folks, or is this, or Councillor Pettingill, you're not proposing that it's joint between two? It's just that we're asking the wrong spot. Yeah, okay. So we'd clarify that, or do we need to clarify that in this meeting, Mr.?
I'm happy to clarify it after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for raising that, Councillor Pettingill.
Okay, thank you. So I have two topics for housing. The first one, the District of Squamish would like to discuss opportunities to ensure the methodology used to assess compliance with the Housing Supply Act will support success in smaller communities. I haven't got a background written for that one yet. I will need to lean on Councillor Stoner for some help there. For the second topic, the request is that Squamish would like to discuss how the province can further support communities such as Squamish who are making significant efforts to increase housing in line with sustainability principles for complete, compact, walkable communities well served by active and public transit. And I did email that to people just about 20 minutes ago. Sorry for the late email.
Thank you. Council? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Councillor Pettingill, in considering the, to quote from your request, to ensure the methodology used to assess compliance with the Housing Supply Act will support success. I think it will. I think probably I and my colleagues will appreciate your sharing the background that you may produce, perhaps in consultation with Councillor Stoner. It seems to me that implementation of the Housing Supply Act can't be considered too narrowly by the province, and that it is not only the size of the community or the community's location that must be borne in mind, but other local and regional smart growth planning considerations. And I'm going to draw an illustration or refer to the Washington State smart growth planning legislation, which I happen to be a fan of. It includes addressing affordable housing, but among other things, so that there needs to be regional transit in place before housing projects are approved. There need to be jobs to housing ratio balance in any community in planning, and each local government in Washington State makes reports on this. There needs to be attention to other considerations in land use planning, such as protection of agricultural lands in the Fraser Valley, or protection of waterfront resources, or taking into account natural hazards constraints, so that in summary, it isn't just size or location of a community that the province needs to take into account, but to look holistically at smart growth planning, looking at other factors. And I would just passing on that observation, expecting that, just for the purpose of your considering your background statement and rationales that you may bring or questions you may bring to the ministry. Thank you.
Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's kind of the point of what we want to get at here. It's not just about counting the number of dwelling units. There are all these other things that have to be considered together to understand, are we doing this well, and helping actually achieve good, affordable communities.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I'd concur with that. And I think one of the things that we want to flag is the 10 municipalities that they are piloting this with are quite large municipalities. And so the resources that smaller communities have to actually be able to develop all of those plans in the first place, to then be able to actually establish appropriate housing supply targets, is a really different context than West Vancouver or Kamloops. I think Saanich is the smallest municipality that they're targeting in the first set. So it's really articulating, making sure that the pilot 10 is not necessarily going to be the one and only methodology that they create, because it's not going to be applicable to some of us smaller communities.
Thank you. Council, anything else on this one and on this one? And were you going to, no, I don't see any hands. My question is going to be, are we, so we would be combining the requests into one request with a backgrounder that covers both of these topics. I think that's sort of what I was feeling through the others. Or do you have two separate requests here?
So my recollection from the discussion that these were two topics for as one request with 1 minute.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. That was my understanding where we're headed as well. So we'll just need to figure out how to get that background into 700 characters to accommodate both of these asks. But I do, yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, each topic is allowed to have a 700 character backgrounder.
Oh, okay.
So when you submit your requests, each
topic.
you
Okay.
can have 3 topics per meeting request. Each topic can have 700 character background and 300 character request.
Okay. All right. So with that bit of information, have we taken advantage of that? We'll need to take advantage of that in these other pieces that did have multiple asks. There were multiple asks throughout. So we do have some room. So we do have some work to do on the backgrounders of the topics that had multiple asks. Just that's to the group. Okay. Anything else, Council? Oh, yes, Ms. Murray.
I would just, through the chair, I'd just like to clarify, is it safe to assume that each person who has written their submission is the person in attendance at the minister meetings?
I think that makes some sense, but Councillor Stoner, do you have?
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. We can have, I think from our, like we've done in the past, we've had up to 3 council members attend and then staff as needed. So I think, yeah, if folks who have taken the lead on a particular topic, I think that makes good sense. But I think previously we would email the mayor with our requests and then they'd shuffle us around and then we'd be told which ones we'd go to. So I think that process worked well.
Yeah. So I think, and I haven't gotten to this point in thinking, so this is happening in real time. I think I would attend all of them, and we can figure out how to fill the other spots. And I think that starting with the people that these were assigned to is a good starting point, and we'll see if there's any conflict points around people not, so like an extra, there'd be 3 total, I think. So mayor, whoever prepared, and then we can figure out who would be appropriate for the third spot, and we'll work to resolve any conflicts that might between now and then. Or do you need all in attendance in the ask?
I do need all in attendance by the 30th for the submission.
Okay, so, oh, sorry, what was that?
Thank you. Just to support what Ms. Murray said, the ministries aren't favorable to us switching attendance once the meeting has been confirmed. It's difficult.
Okay, so why don't we take this offline? It'll be the mayor and whoever prepared, and then I'll fill that 3rd spot, and we'll communicate that. That out, and it's more of a scheduling piece than anything. So I'll work with you on that, Ms. Murray. Okay, council's okay with that direction? Okay, thank you. And we didn't have a recommended motion of that, except Ms. Murray has, we provide Ms. Murray with the needed direction. So now I'd be looking for, so that concludes this, unless anyone else has anything on minister meetings. Nope. Okay. So thank you very much, council, and to Ms. Murray for her help through this. And now I'll be looking for a motion to close. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Motion carries. And now we'll recess until 1:30. We'll come back and close. Thank you.